All right, hello, and welcome to lesson 11 of Last Epoch University. This is the final lesson, and it is on, fittingly, Endgame, which is also one of my favorite subjects, especially since Endgame, this patch, did get deeper than it already was. We'll be covering the new stuff, and of course the stuff that was already in the game, so that whether you are someone who's been playing before or brand new to the game, you will know everything there is pretty much to be offered in the Endgame currently in Last Epoch. But before we get into that, I do want to just quickly mention Patreon. I do have one. As the game progresses to 1.0 relatively slowly, I have been looking for ways to maintain my currently full-time status as a Last Epoch content creator. I've gone, I think, almost 2 years now doing it, and I've had a ton of support from the community, and it's been amazing. But this is another avenue that I wanted to open up for people who wanted to help me get to 1.0 and be able to continue to do this full time. If this is something you're interested in, you can also get some free merchandise if you're into that sort of thing. I think some of it turned out really well. Here is a coffee cup of the McFluffin Bear drinking his own coffee, so you can have coffee with McFluffin. I guess that would be me, even though I don't look like that. That's a good representation, I think, of how I look in real life. So if that's something that interests you, I will leave the description below. Okay, enough with the advertising stuff. Let's actually get to the lesson. So today we will cover Monolith of Fate, Temporal Sanctum, the new dungeon, as well as the arena. Let's start with the Monolith, which is the main endgame system in Last Epoch, the one that you will spend the most amount of time in once you reach endgame. It is composed of a group of timelines. Each has its own web, bosses, and rewards. We'll cover that in a second. And there are also standard and empowered versions, which we will also cover. So, starting with the timelines. The Monolith of Fate consists of a number of islands. So, I'm on one right now. I'm going to go back to the end of time. So this is how you access the Monolith of Fate, because some people have gotten confused on this, so I want to make sure you know how. So, we're in the end of time right here. We are over to the right, and right here, this is access to the Monolith of Fate. You can see it right there. We go ahead and get into here, and now I'm in the Monolith at the very first timeline as soon as I cross this bridge right here. Here we go. This is the first timeline. So you can see on the map how it's broken up. If you're in the end of time part of the map, it will show you all of the timelines. Here they are. I am currently on Fall of the Outcasts, the first one, and there's one here, one here, one here, one here. One here, one here, one here, one here, and one here. On top of having a bunch of timelines, though, there's also a web within each one. So you have all of those islands, then have something like this. This is a small one. Let me get a bigger one. Let me show you guys what they actually start to look like once you start working on them. I'm currently working on Spirits of Fire on this. Here we go. So once you get going, you can really start to build out. You gotta be kidding me, I just reset that one. Go figure. This one is not reset. I know this one is not reset. Okay. There we go. It's still not even that big. These get really large. Apparently I don't have a large one because I keep resetting them for reasons we'll get into later. But as you push out and you do each of these echoes, which are a map, it's just mapping like PoE. You do an echo, you do an echo, you push through, and you can keep going further and further out from the center and build up your web. You won't know what it looks like until you push forward one way or another, and then you'll see more of these little islands, these little echo, or these little web echoes build up. The timelines also have their own unique quests and bosses, which we'll cover a little bit more. But just to point it out real quick, it's over here. So this right here, these three quests, each one has their own set of 3 quests like this, and those quests have their own exclusive blessings and uniques. I think I covered blessings in the gear, but just really quickly so you know what blessings are in case you missed that one. Blessings are either a farming type upgrade for your character or an actual power upgrade for your character. Each timeline has their own set of blessings, and you can see here. I'll actually show you what you discovered, so you can see on this is Fall of the Outcast, the first one. I've discovered all these, so I've rolled all these at least once, and I've chosen this one to actually be active. They also have static levels, each timeline that is. So this one here that I'm on, the base version, which is this one, normal area level 80. If we start at the beginning, which is Fall of the Outcast, this is going to be a level 55 baseline. In fact, you can see right on here once you've unlocked them. Well, excuse me, it's 58 now. I forgot. These actually went up a little bit. So this is now a level 58 timeline. It used to be 55. Now 58, but the difference is pretty nominal. So how do you progress through the timeline? So you start at the bottom. So Fall of the Outcast like I'm at now. And then you conquer timelines, which allows you to progress to the next tier. So I do this one. I do all the quest echoes here. I finish the last quest echo. And I will unlock an option, which we'll cover in a second as well, to, in this case, go between these two. I can choose one or the other, and then I can move on to the next one. And I can keep doing this all the way up the islands until I've unlocked all of them, or I've unlocked all of them on one side, whatever my goal is on that. Okay, let's talk more about the web, which is that thing that happens when you get to a timeline and then you actually want to progress into the timeline. So here's a normal, actually. This is the level 58 version of this, which my character is way overpowered for, but just for the sake of showing what it looks like. So when you enter it, you open the map, and then you select a particular map or an echo. They're called echoes, but if you're familiar with PoE and mapping, it's very similar. You're basically selecting a map to play. Now, a little bit different from PoE, there are several types of echoes and maps. They're standard and they're special. We'll cover special echoes in a few minutes, what those are. So let's talk about standard echoes. These are the vast majority of the echoes you're going to do are standard. What they are is they're just a map with an objective. There's a map, you select it, and it tells you there's some sort of objective you've got to do. So if I go into here and I select this one right here, and also adds a modifier, by the way, it adds a modifier. It adds rarity, it adds experience, and it gives you a reward. If I click on this, I join this. This is actually an arena. I didn't have to click. This one will actually start up an arena, and I have to complete the number of waves it tells me. In this case, it'd be 16. I'm not going to do it right now, but it'd be 16 waves. I have to kill all 16 waves. And when I do that, I will complete the echo, or excuse me, the echo, and I can leave. Okay, we talked about the modifier that increases the difficulty and the XP and item rarity. So I will mention real quick what item rarity is. It increases the likelihood of getting higher tiers and more affixes on craftable items, as well as exalted items, unique items, crafting mats, and keys. So basically, just about anything that you might want to get more of or better of, it will affect. It also gives stability, which is something that you need to unlock the quest echoes. We'll talk about that a bit in a few slides from now. But as you do them, you will see it gives you, oops, it brought me back here. I didn't complete the echo. If I'd completed that echo, it would have brought me back to the timeline, but because I teleported out, it brings me to the town. Oops, it's the other one. There we go. If I completed it, I'll get the runes, which are the objective reward that we get here, as well as 34 timeline stability. You can see the stability bar up here. Tells you how far you are, and this tells you how much stability you need to complete each quest. So it gives stability, it gives that predetermined reward. If you die, you lose that reward, by the way. So if I had done this one, I would get runes. I'd get a set of runes. It would drop in the middle of the map, or not the map, but the finishing area. Like when you teleport out, you go to a specific area that is like the, oh, you completed this. Now here's like some vendors, and here's your actual rewards. You get those rewards. You'll have a bunch of runes that you can click a little thing on the ground, get a bunch of runes. If you fail this, though, that reward goes away even if you complete it in the future. You definitely want to be successful and try not to die on these. Typical ARPG, try not to die. It's still the case here. So runes on this one, I get arena key for this one. We'll talk about the arena a little bit. Get affixed shards on this one. This one gives glyphs. This one gives gold. There's a bunch. In fact, we're going to cover all the rewards in a minute. Okay, it also gives a reward chest, and the chest is a separate reward you get outside of that predetermined reward. And it can drop anything in it. Pretty much anything. Drop uniques, craft items, gold, affixes, glyphs, all that stuff. The more enemies you kill, the more you'll get in the reward chest. I don't recommend going out and full clearing echoes, though. The reward chest doesn't improve that much. It's not really that worth it. But it is nice to know if you kill more enemies, you will get more out of it. Okay, here are the objectives for each echo, the standard echo, the non-special echoes. These are the only types you'll get currently in the game. This could change if you're watching this a patch or two from now. But currently, there are patrols, which are 1 to 3 rare type enemies, or just difficult enemies oftentimes. We'll be patrolling the map. They'll be moving along a pathway, and you have to go intercept them and kill them. There's a mini boss, usually someone from the campaign, who's not particularly hard anymore, but might have been challenging then, will be somewhere on the map, and you go and you kill them. The arena, which is like the arena endgame system, except it's a much smaller sample size. 12 to 18, 12 to 17, 12 to 18 waves total. And they'll all come out all at once. So not all at once, but like one after the other. There's no stop in between like there is in the actual arena. You kill all them and you're done. Spires is basically mortars. They're like cannons, so to speak, somewhere on the map. There's 1 to 3 of these. And they'll be firing at you as you're going through the echo, and you gotta go find them and destroy them. And then time gates are just an area where you go to and you click on it. There's a time gate on the ground. You click on it and it spawns a bunch of enemies. And you have to kill the enemies. Kind of similar to Arena, except it's in a standard map, whereas Arena, it's in its own map. It's an Arena map specifically. And that's all it does, whereas this one you have to go find the time gate, then click on it, and then you kill the enemies. As far as reward types go, there's a bunch, but here's the more notable ones. So you can get XP, you can get gold, you can get arena and dungeon keys. Actually, that's not true. You can't, I don't think you can get dungeon keys from the Echo reward type. I've never seen that, so that consider that an error on my part. Just arena keys. You get dungeon keys from drops usually. I don't think I've ever seen Echo. Shards, runes, and glyphs. You can get uniques. So like there's actually echoes like you get 1 unique if you finish this, and it's just some random unique. But there's also specific type uniques. So every timeline has a specific type unique that can drop, or 2. So this one, called the Outcast, has bows. In fact, that one doesn't have any. Shoot, I was really hoping I had one up that I could show you what that looks like. But when you get one of these, and the rarer, the more corruption you have, the harder it is, the farther out in the timeline, the more likely these are to drop. Okay, so this one might have some. I might have actually finished all these too, because I was actually farming this one. Yeah, here's a good example of a big web. This one was being used for farming. So yeah, there's a lot going on here. I don't have a good example here, unfortunately. I do have an example of Exalted, though. There was an Exalted one over here somewhere. Don't tell me I can't find it now. Here we go. Here's Exalted body armor. So this will drop a number of Exalted body armors. If I were to have found like the shield one, it would have dropped 1 unique shield. Or the helmet one would drop 1 unique helmet at the end as a reward type. That's a good way to target farm a unique that you might need. Like if you need a shield, a particular shield. Bastion of Honor, which I've been very unsuccessful with, but if you needed that one, you would go here, you would look for the shield echo rewards, and you'd complete all those. And then we talked about the specific type Exalteds, like body armor, anything really, helmets, it all can drop 2-handed axes, you name it. Okay, that's all the standard echo stuff, so that's the majority of your time, but there are also special echoes that do special things, and some of these are really valuable. Now, they're all really valuable in their own way, some more so than others, though. So the beacon, there's actually, I know there's a beacon on here. I swore I saw one. Here's a beacon right there. There's a beacon. So if you click on this and you go do this, it's going to have an area that you go to that has a big circle around it and a literal beacon in the center. You click on it, it creates this big circle, and then a whole bunch of void enemies come out and try to kill you for a predetermined period of time. Killing them doesn't do anything other than clear them from the area. The objective here is just to stand in the beacon area, that circle, as long as you can. I mean, you're gonna have to stay in it for a certain period of time. Don't go out of it, or else progression stops. So as long as you're in it, you continue to progress the timer or the progression bar, and once it hits 100%, you've completed the echo, and everything that was being spawned out will die. And when that happens, this will actually clear out more of the web, or show you more of the web than a typical just completed echo would. It's usually like I think it's 2 to 3 times. There's an actual number that is, I don't know exactly, but it's a much larger area, which will help you make strategic decisions of which way you might want to go in the web. They might show you that there's a really valuable echo reward somewhere you weren't going to go otherwise. Vessel of Memory. I don't think I have a memory or chaos up, unfortunately. Here we go. This one's complete. This is a chaos here. I don't think I got a memory. Memory tends to be a little bit harder to find in my experience. I also personally consider Echo to be a little more valuable. So basically a memory is just a blue version of this. I think it's a slightly different icon, but it's kind of like a blue version of this. And what the memory one will do is to complete it, you just go in. There is literally a memory like vessel on the map, or in the map, and you have to just destroy it. It's going to spawn its own like blue enemies. You go and destroy it. It's got its own health bar, and when you do that, it's going to take every single completed echo that you've done, that you've successfully completed and got the reward on. It's going to reset them. Not these ones. It doesn't reset beacons, but it resets all the other ones. And you can get the reward again. So the memory can be really good if you had like a nice, strong group of echo rewards in a small area, and then you ran across the memory. You can do the memory to get those rewards again. Now the chaos does basically the opposite. It's another thing where you go kill it. It's red in the map. It's red. Go kill it. Same thing. When you do, it will re-roll all of the rewards of the echoes you haven't completed but can see. So maybe the ones you can't see either, doesn't matter because you can't see them. So like this one, the gold one here, that would get re-rolled to something else. Same here. All this stuff would be re-rolled, which is great if you've cleared out a bunch of the web looking for something like the shield nodes, and you can't find them, but you have a chaos. Or if you've done them all and you're not seeing any on the map, you run a chaos, and then all those shift, and they might shift over to what you're looking for. All right, the last one is the Shade of Orbis. The Shade of Orbis is a very important mechanic. This here is a Shade node. The Shade is a boss. A boss that has a whole bunch of different abilities, and it will change those abilities. It has different element types. You can fight a poison one, you can fight a cold one, you can fight a physical one, and killing it will either give you more corruption or remove corruption depending on how much corruption you have. Here's corruption up here. We're going to talk about corruption a little bit later in more detail, but here's corruption. I can gain or lose this by killing the Shade depending on how far out I am and how much corruption I have. The closer to the starting point, where's the freaking starting point on this thing, huh? Boy, this is the problem when you make a really big one. It's hard to find where you start. Let's look at a smaller one. Let's look at this one. This is the starting point. This is what the starting point looks like. The farther out from this you are, the more corruption it will give you. And once you start to build corruption, it'll start to give you low, or actually minus corruption closer to this. It's meant to be a mechanic to prevent you from like basically breaking your timeline. Not really a problem, and it's kind of a clunky way of doing it. It does serve some purposes though, to lower your corruption. Most of the time we're gonna be doing it to gain corruption. It also, on top of that, has its own loot table of uniques, and they are pretty valuable. So you want to kill the Shade for the uniques and also for the corruption, and it resets the web, which is a double-edged sword. So if I were to do, for example, this one here, if I were to take out this Shade, it'd give me 14 corruption, but it would also start me back here. All of this stuff would be gone. I'd be doing a brand, and it would re-randomize everything too. So like all the echo rewards would change. Okay, let's talk about stability and quest echoes. This is directly related to completing a timeline and also getting your blessings and getting your rewards off of the quest bosses, should not be confused with the Shade. The Shade of Orbis shows up in every timeline, and it shows up as an echo type, right? So it shows up like here. This is an echo. Always shows up in these timelines. But over here is what we're talking about with stability and the actual timeline bosses, which are timeline specific. So each timeline has its own boss, that you have to kill in order to complete the timeline, open up other timelines, get your blessings, and get their unique rewards if you're hunting them. So, you need stability to unlock those. So this one here, this is the first one. This is the level 55 version. Needs 50 stability, 200 stability, and 350 stability. This is not cumulative, by the way, so it's not like you don't need 600 stability. You literally need 350 stability. 350 will get you all you need for this. Once you've done that, you can do the quest. Now, you can do these quests as they unlock if you want. So once you've got 50 stability, you can do this one, then go back and do more stability, this one, or you can just do them all at the same time, get a full 350 stability, and then just knock them out. It's easier to kill the boss if you do it that way, because you'll start to drop off modifiers. These modifiers only last for a period of time. Like this one lasts for 4 turns. You can see void enemies deal 75% increased damage for 4 turns. This one for 5 turns, this one for 4, this one for 3, so on and so forth. These start to drop off. If you do the quest echoes last, then you'll probably drop off some because you'll have to do 2 echoes before you get to the boss. So like, for example, if I were to go, and I don't have this stability, but if I had the stability and I wanted to go and do the boss, and I tried to do it right now by doing all 3 timelines, this would fall off and this would remain with 1 left. So I'd kill the boss with just, or I'd take on the boss with 1 modifier. But if you have higher rarity, that's good for unique boss drops in certain scenarios. So there are reasons to potentially bring in additional rarity, but it's definitely easier to do it without it. As I said, there are 3 quests echoes per timeline, and you can get enough for all 3 and run them all at the same time, but you don't have to. You do have to complete them in order, though. You have to do the first one first, the second one, then the boss one, the third one last. They will usually provide an option to unlock one of 2 higher timelines. So, for example, if you were to do this one, which is, let's not do this one. If you were to do Fall of the Outcast right here, which will be the first one you'll ever do. Once you finished it and you kill the boss, you will get a dialogue box that says, which one of these do you want to unlock? It'll give you the 62 or the 66 option. By the way, choose the 66. Always start this way. And I'll tell you why later. But you'll get that dialogue box, you'll be able to unlock it. If you want to unlock the other one, you just run this again, get more stability, kill the boss again, and then unlock the 62, and you can have both unlocked, no problem. Okay, you can unlock the one, yeah, I just mentioned this, you can unlock the one you didn't choose by running the quest. Now after the quests are complete, the spent stability is lost, but any extra remains. So if I had run this one here, and I had 400 stability, and it costs 350 stability to do this, I would have 50 stability left over after running these one time. So I wouldn't have to start from the beginning. And you can bank up to double. So in this one, I can bank up to 700 stability, and I can run it twice in a row if I want to. If you run echoes past double stability, you will lose the stability. So if you're farming the boss, make sure not to do that, because it will mean you have to spend more time in the timeline than you wanted to. The web does not reset when you kill the quest echo boss. So it's unlike the Shade of Orbis. It doesn't have the same mechanic there. Only the shade resets the web. And you can rebuild stability as many times as you want to rerun the quest. You can rerun the quest as many times as you want. In fact, when you're farming blessings, this is exactly what you're going to do. Or if you're farming unique off of a particular timeline boss, you're going to do that. Okay. Now, standard timelines are one thing, but there's a more difficult version of the game. Some of us call this the real end game, like where you really test your build, where the difficulty really ramps up. That's empowered timelines. To unlock these empowered timelines, these harder versions of these timelines, you have to go up the right side of the island. You have to complete the Fall of the Outcast, the Black Sun, Ending the Storm, Reign of Dragons. From there, you have to complete all 3 at the top that are linked by this blue thing here. See that? This blue thing here. You go Spirits of Fire, Last Ruin, Age of Winter. You complete all 3 of those. You've worked your way up through these. And when that's done, you click on this thing in the real world. There's like a thing that actually happens. You walk over to this, you click on the thing. It unlocks empowered version of every timeline. Now, of course, you have to actually have unlocked the timeline to run it. So, for example, on this character, I've never unlocked Blood, Frost, and Death because I don't care about it. But if I did care about it, I have it unlocked. You can see I have the 100 here. It means I can do it. But I still have to do one of the connecting timeline and actually unlock Blood and Frost and Death to run it. But it's there. It's waiting for me. Okay. So these are the last 3 timelines you have to do, the level 90 ones, to actually unlock it. But of course, to get to them, you have to go this way. So you undo these ones, and then you're good. Once you've done that, you have the empowered version. The empowered version is the level 100 version. So the other ones that you'll remember have their own levels, like the level 90 ones, the level 58 one. All empowered become level 100. They also start with 100 corruption, and they have unlimited increases in corruption. You can increase the corruption as high as you want. What does that mean? Well, let's talk about corruption. So in non-empowered versions, you can increase corruption. It's an option. There's a mechanic for it. The Shade of Orbis exists in non-empowered. You can kill him in that. And when you do, in non-empowered, you'll actually increase the area level of the timeline. You will give them more enemy damage and health. You will increase XP and item rarity. But you are capped at 50% corruption. You cannot go any higher than that. So there is a limit to how much more difficult they can get and to how much of a benefit you can get from running them. Now, empowered doesn't have that. It's already level 100, so you don't get the area level increase. You don't need it because you're already at the max. You start at 100 corruption, which is twice as much as you can possibly get in non-empowered. By the way, 100 corruption equates to 50% more damage and health for the enemies. It is more. That is a multiplier on any other multipliers or any other increases they could have. So if they have increased damage from a timeline echo modifier, this will multiply off of that. This is why the game gets more challenging. So you start at 50% more health, damage and health, and you can increase it by adding more corruption. Corruption is not linear, so it does have diminishing returns. So it's not like at 1,000 corruption you have 500% more damage and health. It's not quite that extreme, but you do add more difficulty as you add more corruption. You are not capped on it, even though you do have a diminishing return. You can raise this corruption as far as you want to. So for example, what that kind of looks like, I don't know which one's my highest. It might actually be the Black Sun. This is at 463 corruption. So we started at 100. We're now at 463 corruption. What does that mean? It means 385% increased item. Well, that's actually because I'm writing this. It means 215% more health and damage. And it is adding to the item rarity and experience, as are these, and that's what's getting me all this rarity experience. So that's a lot, right? Yeah. So you definitely can increase the difficulty significantly through the corruption system, and that's what we do. A lot of us players that play the game a lot, the corruption system is our way of really pushing our builds and increasing our rewards. Here are some additional benefits of corruption. I did mention this a little bit, some of the stuff. Actually I didn't mention any of this. Perfect. So increases stability per echo. So there might be reasons why you want to run the bosses, especially on empowered. For one, empowered blessings are better than regular blessings. So if you kill the boss on the regular timeline and got a blessing, even if it was the blessing you wanted the most, because they all have their own unique blessing loot table, it was the one you wanted and it was a great roll, it's still lower than what you're going to get empowered. So you're gonna have to run empowered versions to get your blessings, but it's going to take you a while. You're probably not going to get the first shot. You might not get the high roll that you want. But if you start increasing your corruption, you can actually increase the stability each echo gives. So increased corruption, more stability, quicker to get to the boss. Also at 200, I didn't put this in here, but at 200 corruption, you unlock an additional blessing slot that you get from the boss when you kill it. So, and there's another one that unlocks at 100. So if you're running the unempowered version, you'll get a choice of 3 blessings. You choose one of those 3 every time you kill the boss. But if you run empowered, you get 4. At 100 corruption, you get 4 blessing choices. At 200 corruption, you get 5 blessing choices. So it behooves you to increase the corruption, because if you're having a bad time trying to get the blessing you want, you can get more chances at every time you kill it. Also, some uniques require corruption to drop, and or they have increased drop chances from higher corruption. For example, Omnis only drops at a certain level of corruption. I think it's 200, maybe 300. Omnis is a very, very rare amulet. I actually saw one today or yesterday, but they are very rare. Apathy's Maw is a 2-handed axe I actually use in the build that I'm using right now to show you all this stuff. It drops at 100 corruption. And the more corruption you have, the higher the chances on it. Ravenous Void, the rarest unique in the game, has increased chance to drop off of the timeline boss Gaspar. As you increase corruption, Gaspar you can find in the last ruin. That's a bear of a grind, by the way. Be prepared for a long time if you're trying to get Ravenous Void. Also, rare timeline boss drops. So the bosses have their own unique table. I think they have 4 total, and 2 of them are rare. 2 of the drops. If you increase corruption, you have a higher chance of getting that. Okay, we're done, finally. Half an hour in. It took us half an hour to get through the Monolith of Fate. That's how much there is in the Monolith. It's got a ton of stuff. Let's talk about the Temporal Sanctum Dungeon. This is new content. Brand new. Just shipped 0.8.4. You can find it in the Shining Cove in the Imperial Era. So, Imperial Era. Shining Cove. You go here. Go to the right once you're in. Go like all the way to the right. You'll find a door. Go through that door. There's a quest that will have you go through that door already. If you've done that quest, you can go to the Ruined Coast. And from the Ruined Coast, you can get right into it. The Temporal Sanctum here. This is actually where the dungeon is. Did click that. Is it actually going to load or what? There we go. This is where the dungeon begins. So, you'll end up in here. From here, you'll get to put a key in. You have to collect these keys. Mostly, you'll collect these in the Monolith of Fate. They do also drop in the dungeon, but almost all of them will drop in the Monolith. They look like this. You pop it in here, and you press Enter Sanctum, and you get to choose a tier. Now, when you first do it, you only have tier 1, level 55. But once you've completed that, you'll get tier 2, which gives you additional rewards. You can see the boss drops additional idols, but also it's harder. Tier 3 here drops more runes, and tier 4 drops substantially more exalted helmets for enemies. These change every day, so go back and look often if you're looking for a particular item. Like this would be like a really good one if there's an exalted helmet you need. So it's a really good way of farming certain items, especially exalteds. Okay, there we covered all that. Perfect. There's a special mechanic for the dungeon. I'll show you that real quick. We can just go ahead and spend one of these keys because I have plenty of them. They drop quite often. Now from here, to actually get into the dungeon, you have to use the mechanic. You see your temporal shift. And normally this is the D button. I've switched mine to 3 because it's just easier. I press this and I switch. You switch over into different periods of time. And we'll just pop in real quick. I won't finish this dungeon. And you'll see how that affects the actual game. These little gates are open in some places and closed in others. Also, the type of enemies you'll come across are different in each timeline. Okay. As you're progressing through the dungeon, you'll have 3 total floors. The first floor, which I'm on right now, the second floor, and then the boss. To get from the first floor to the second floor, you'll have to choose between 2 different doors that are in different parts of the dungeon. Eventually, it will tell you where if you can't find it quickly enough. And they'll have different options for you. They'll have different difficulty modifiers for the enemies, and they'll also have a different reward type. You choose one of the 2. And the boss has the same thing. The boss is from the second floor. Again, you'll look for 2 different doors. You'll choose one of the doors, which will determine what the boss drops and also some of the modifiers on it. The final boss will also always drop a unique with potential, as well as an exalted that fits it. The boss is always the same, by the way, as Julra. So there's some boss guides out there if you need help with that one. And she has her own unique loot table with uniques that are kind of designed to work with the legendary system. And because you get the unique with potential and the exalted, you're guaranteed every time you run it to be able to create a legendary. You can also find uniques with potential and exalted in the world, so you don't have to use hers, the ones that she drops. But this is a way to make sure that everyone can. And also, some of those uniques that she drops are really good and might be worth your time. Each tier of it also has a different unique, and it adds to the pool. So like the first one has a particular unique, then tier 2 of the dungeon, the harder, adds a second unique to it, tier 3 adds a third unique, and tier 4 adds a fourth. And you'll get one of those depending on which tier you're running. If you're running tier 2, you have a choice of 2. During tier 4, you have a choice of 4. You have a choice, and one's going to drop and the rest are not. The dungeon is also the only way to create legendaries, which are a very strong endgame part of the game. We've talked about those in the itemization or the gearing section. They're basically unique with affixes from exalted items added onto them. In order to make these, you need to finish the dungeon, kill Julra, then open the Eternity Cache in the Divine Era. Eternity Cache will be the next door past Julra. Place the unique with legendary potential in the slot, and then place an exalted of the same type with 4 affixes in the slot. By type, I mean if you're using an amulet, a unique amulet, you need to use an exalted amulet as well. If you're using unique two-handed axe, you need an exalted two-handed axe, unique boots, exalted two-handed boots, etc. Now you confirm that and you switch over to the Ruined Era, you click on the Eternity Cache again, and boom, you claim your newly made legendary. Now, a quick note, this is the only dungeon in the game as of this recording, but there are more dungeons planned in the future. This was the first of supposedly many that they're planning. So if you're watching this after 0.8.4, do check to see if there are more that have been added, because they may have added more mechanics and rewards that are worth your time. All right, last section. The arena. This will be fairly short, but I do definitely want to cover it. Because this is a part of the end game. For some players, this is a very, very important part, especially if you're competitive or you just really like to test your builds. That's where you go with the arena. The arena is accessed by finding keys in the Monolith of Fate. There are 2 types, the arena key and the arena key of memory. I don't think I have an arena key on me, but yeah, I do. There's an arena key. Let me actually go back, get out of this dungeon, show you where to go to do the arena, and show you what those keys look like. Oops, this is not where I want to be. I want to be the end of time. All right, there we go. So the arena key is this red one, and then the key of memory is this blue one. I'll talk about those in a second. Access the arena. You go in here, click on this endless arena here, put the key of choice in there, and then press enter the arena, and boom, you are in the arena. If you do the irregular arena key, you'll start at wave 1, which is the easiest ones. If you do the arena key of memory, you'll start at the much harder wave 100, or half of your last run, whichever is greater. So if you did a run previously, if you've never done a run, you'll start at wave 100. If you did a run of like 130, you start at wave 100. If you've done a run of wave 250, you start at wave 125. Remember, it's your last run, so it only cares about the one you've done most recently. So here's the mechanic of the arena. It's pretty simple. You'll get 5 waves of enemies that come at you. You get 1 wave at a time. You won't get the next wave until you're down to 1 enemy of the last wave, or less. Then you get the next one. You kill all 5, then you get a rest period, where you get some loot that drops, you have a vendor, and you have a stash. You choose when to start the next 5. Every 5 waves, you can choose to continue or leave for rewards. 1 second. Excuse me. Don't leave. The rewards are terrible. Unless you're playing hardcore and you don't want to die. But if you're not worried about dying, don't leave. It's not worth it. But you can, and you get some rewards. You get a guaranteed key at level 100 as well, or wave 100. You get a guaranteed key of memory. But again, outside of that, the rewards are really bad. This is not meant to be a great farming option. Also, every 10 waves, the arena map changes. And it gets increasingly harder as you go, like exponentially harder. So, wave 1's very easy. Wave 100 starts to get challenging depending on the build and the player. Very few people get past, wave 200 plus, wave 300 plus, wave 400 plus. You start to get into really, really elite builds / players at that point. The purpose of the arena is mostly a measuring stick to compare yourself versus the relative power of enemies or against other players, because there is a leaderboard. The leaderboard is available, but do note it is heavily compromised by cheating right now. Expect that to be the case until multiplayer launches and we go server authoritative, so players can't edit their files. I bring this up to you because I don't want people to see the leaderboard, notice that someone has pushed 1,500 waves and think that's possible. It's not. I don't want you to get the It feels bad because you only did 150 waves when that person did 1500. It's not because you're a bad player, it's because they cheated. Okay, with that out of the way. The arena does offer drops and XP, but like I mentioned with the measly rewards, just like even if you stay in, the drops are generally much worse than alternative endgame systems. The XP can be good if you can push far. Chances are, if you can push far, you've already got a pretty well leveled character. And even then, I'm not convinced that's better than the Monolith. So to me, the arena really is a way for you to measure yourself, to compete if you want to. And if you like to compete, we run almost weekly weekend tournaments through Twitch streamer Vision GL. He runs community tournaments where we do use the arena as the measuring stick, and he has a way of keeping track of how people are doing and generally weeding out cheaters. So if you're someone who does like to compete and you're bummed about the idea that the online leaderboard is compromised, check out Vision GL's stream and ask him about doing the community weekend tournaments. I do them most of the time myself, and they're a lot of fun. And they are competitive insofar as that there's actually rewards. The EHG, the developers of LE, do give rewards to the top 2 people of hardcore and softcore. But other than that, they're pretty laid back, casual, and there's really no pressure. If you don't do really well, nobody cares. It's all for fun. Okay, that is the end game. I hope you enjoy it. I find the end game in LE to be very good for a game that's only in early access. So hopefully you feel the same. Would love to hear your comments about it. Also, if you'd like to hang out with on Twitch, watch me do the end game. I do it a lot. I'm currently farming legendaries in the end game, in fact. We would love to have you. And we also have a Discord where you can ask questions or just talk about LE. And we have a community there that's very friendly. Would love to have you there as well. All right. Thanks again. I hope you have a great time in LE, and I will see you all again real soon.